Hi everyone, Daniel here, and thank you for tuning in to my first playthrough of Thomas and Friends Wonders of Sodor here on the Phantom Train YouTube channel. This is going to be a bit of a different video because a while back I actually posted a poll asking you all if you all would like to see some gaming content based around trains. And a majority of you voted yes, so I figured I'd give this game a go since it came out this week, give my initial impressions, and go from there. I've honestly been looking forward to this game for a while. It's just nice to actually see something different that is so nostalgic, but also plays onto a brand new train simulator. Again, this is made by Dovetail Games, who make the Train Sim World games, and they are incredible. And I've pre-recorded this content already. What you're about to see here is basically my initial first playthrough, so this isn't like a first impression or anything. I'm going to basically show you gameplay and add nuggets of commentary here or there where I feel necessary as to not to interrupt the dialogue. So sit back, relax, and I hope you all enjoy this first look at Thomas and Friends Wonders of Sodor. One thing to note, this game retails at $29.99 or $39.99 depending whether you get the deluxe edition or not. I have to say, I love this little intro with Bertie driving down as he looks over at Thomas. It's so adorable. Here comes the blue boy. That is a really good model.
Hello there, and welcome to Farquhar Station. Before you can start your adventures on the island of Sodor, you will need to learn how to drive one of my engines. And I could think of none better than Thomas. In this short introduction, you will be taken through every step needed to make sure that Thomas is a really useful engine. And I'm sure you will be an expert driver in no time. Would you like to learn how to drive Thomas? Press the yes button to continue learning how to play. Or if you feel you are ready, press the no button to begin exploring Sodor. You can play this introduction again at any time by choosing the Introduction to Sodor.
It works pretty much like the DLC in Train Sim World, but for sake of argument, let's check it out anyway.
Hello, driver. Climb on board, and we can get started.
Follow the markers in front of you, as they will guide you to Thomas's cab steps. Before you can climb the steps, you will need to check if the cab door is open. If you can see that the cab door is closed, you can open it by first looking at it and then pressing the button shown on the screen. Now that Thomas's cab door is open, you can use the steps to climb up into the cab. This is Thomas's cab. Here you will learn the controls needed to drive Thomas. Let's get started by first moving over to the driving position. If you want a better view of your train or the line ahead, you can change between inside and outside camera views at any time while driving. For now, use the controls shown on screen to change to the outside camera.
So if it wasn't plainly obvious before, this is essentially a watered-down version of Train Sim World. But I don't see that as a bad thing. I think this is a great introduction for novices or fans of Thomas in general, really.
You can change between this view and the inside cab view at any time by pressing either of the controls shown here. There are many locations on the railways of Sodor where lines separate or join together. These involve a network of points that set the direction the train will be travelling. On the main line, most of these points are controlled by the closest signal box. However, There are yards and junctions that require the points to be set manually. Thomas's friends Annie and Clarabelle are waiting at the station platform. In order to reach Annie and Clarabelle, you will first need to switch the points so that it sets the correct track. You can set the points by climbing down out of the cab, walking over and interacting with it.
Now, I'm going to be honest. I've never actually played the Thomas and Friends DLC. I know I could easily get it now, but yeah, I just never crossed my mind, to be honest. But if I remember from videos I watched, I think this is just a recreation of the tutorial for that DLC with a few bells and whistles added.
You can also change the points on the map, which can be accessed by pressing the key shown now.
Remember that thing I said about novices? Guess which one I am. Yeah, I played train simulators before, from Microsoft Train Simulator to Trains to this, but I'm usually not very good at these. But I will say this, the way Train Sim World is made is so accessive, not excessive, accessive, that it's so easy to pick up and play it and to understand it as long as you know how to drive the trains. Now, yes, steam locomotives are going to be harder to drive than diesel or electric, but it gives you the tools to learn how to use it, and it gives you the time to do so, which honestly makes me really wish they had more steam locomotives in Train Sim World. I know they're adding more. Why to see like a pannier tank one day? Just not DLC, you know?
Excellent work so far. The junction is now correctly set. So it is time to move Thomas out of the siding and over to Annie and Clarabelle. To move Thomas forward, press and hold the button shown now on the screen to increase the throttle. Well done. You're doing a good job so far. To slow Thomas down, press and hold the button shown to begin applying the brakes.
Also, I apologize if there's slowdown. I was running it on my laptop and there is a bit of slowdown, which I can't do much about, I'm afraid. I've recently had some issues with my gaming PC where for some reason it would load to the BIOS. Turns out it has to do with the CMOS battery just needed replacing. But now I have another issue where it keeps trying to load the processor fan, but my processor doesn't have a fan. So I'm hoping that that's not an issue. If it is, I'll have to upgrade it. The thing is, my laptop is the most upgraded piece of gaming PC material I have. So yeah, this is what we get for now. So there's a bit of slowdown here or there. I try to minimize it as much as I can, but you can still kind of get the gist of how I learn how to play the game and all that. And honestly, driving Thomas is fun! Whee! As you can see, I'm trying to take my time here to do it properly so I don't mess up, which I will eventually.
As you can see, the throttle has returned to 0. This means that Thomas is now ready to travel in either forward or reverse. To make Thomas reverse, tap the control shown on screen until the direction arrow on the hood points down.
But from first impressions, honestly, I'm genuinely impressed. You get the idea of playing on this gigantic train set, but there's still so much realism to the world that it feels like Thomas and his friends can fit in this world.
Remember to slow down when approaching Annie and Clarabelle. You should be going at no more than 5 miles per hour when attempting to couple to coaching stock and troublesome trucks.
One criticism I do have, though, is the creation of the humans. I know they had to make them look sort of semi-realistic, but the problem is the Fat Controller, or Sir Topham Hatt, which one you prefer, looks very Uncanny Valley. It was giving the Polar Express, and I'm going to be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of... I mean, I like the story of the Polar Express, don't get me wrong. I think it's a brilliant story, and Tom Hanks is a brilliant actor. I'm just not a fan of the CGI. It tries too hard to be real, where if they went something stylized, I reckon it would look a lot better myself. But that's just me. If you like the Polar Express, that's great. That's just my thoughts.
Hello, Annie. Hello, Clarabelle.
Hello, Thomas. To allow passengers to climb aboard, you will first need to open the passenger doors using the controls shown on the screen. There are other cameras available to use during your adventures on Sodor. Let's look at another one now. Using the button shown on screen, change to the free camera. You are now using the free camera. With this camera, you can freely fly around to wherever you'd like. You are still able to fully control your train whilst using this camera, and it's very useful for getting a good look at your surroundings. Move the camera around so it is looking at Thomas. Now return to the inside camera view using the button shown here. Remember, you can drive Thomas from both the inside cab view and the outside camera you were shown earlier. Good job. It looks like everyone has boarded now. You can go ahead and close the passenger doors using the controls shown here. You've got a green signal, so you're ready to continue to the next station. Increase the throttle once again to move Thomas forward.
Dovetail Games did a brilliant job recreating the inside of the footplate. Only thing I don't know is, where is the whistle chain or what have you? Like, I don't know if the trains are doing it themselves, or if there is like a hidden cabal. I mean, and I know it's not always chains. Like 1719 Lady Nan, the Andrew Barclay, you got to push in like a lever. Lillian at the Launceston Railway, it's like a it's like you got to turn a dial or something. So the slowdown tends to happen when I shake the camera around really fast, and I don't know if that's like a hardware issue, or I don't know if that's like an OBS Studio issue. Maybe if I do more of these, I may get this game on PlayStation 5, because I can record it from that, and that would look much better. Actually, I probably should have done that from the beginning. I need a good excuse to dust out my gaming consoles. Obviously, they'll go back into the back burner now that Railway season started again, but it's good to know that you can get this game on PlayStation, Nintendo Switch, Xbox, Steam. I think that this game will be more successful than it has any right to be. And I think it's because Railway enthusiasts who secretly really like Thomas... Well, actually, I feel like the Railway community has accepted the fact that there are adults who love Thomas the Tank Engine. I'm not talking about like the early days of like YouTube where they were like making their own silly series and anything. I think it's general.
Remember to slow down as you approach a station you want to stop at, so that you come to a safe stop.
But even though it doesn't have the additional difficulty curve of learning how to actually control the locomotive as you're supposed to, it still does a grand job of introducing a younger audience or a novice audience to this game, which I think is honestly really important when you're trying to establish an audience or to get game sales. I'm waffling. Give me a break. It's 11 o'clock at night and I haven't had a drink in a while.
Good work. Now open the passenger doors to allow the passengers to start boarding. Splendid job. It looks like you and Thomas make a great team, and I'm certain you will be an expert driver in no time.
You're a great driver. I can't wait to start our adventures together.
So with any game, there's a general story mode, which I think is quite clever. It takes some stories from the Railway series or the show, but it also has its own unique ideas for stories, which are basically kind of missions and that sort of thing. But it adds some variety, which is really important. And Mark Morakan, I don't know how you pronounce that. I'm sorry if I got it wrong. He does a great job. But wouldn't it have been an amazing Easter egg to get Ringo's star?
Thomas and Gordon.
Thomas is a tank engine who lives at the big station on the island of Sodor. He has 6 small wheels, a short stumpy funnel, a short stumpy boiler, and a short stumpy dome. He is a fussy little engine too, always pulling coaches about, getting them ready for the big engines to take on long journeys. And when trains arrive at the station, he pulls the empty coaches away so that the big engines can go and rest. Thomas thinks no engine works as hard as he does. He loves playing tricks on them, especially Gordon, the biggest and proudest engine of all. Thomas likes whistling cheekily at him. Wake up, lazy bones. Why don't you work hard like me? One morning, Thomas found it hard to wake up. His fire went out and there wasn't enough steam. It was nearly time for the express, but the coaches weren't ready. At last, Thomas started. He fussed into the station where Gordon was waiting.
Hurry up, you, said Gordon, and bring me my coaches.
Hurry yourself, replied Thomas.
Yes, said Gordon, I will.
I think that's really cool that if you whistle next to another engine, it whistles back at you. I don't remember if that's actually something in Train Sim World, but again, that's something they did in the TV show anyway, so when you notice it, you should go, ah, it's cool. But anyway, so, the first episode of the series, it's weird. I always had the idea that when the Reverend Wilbur Audrey wrote the Railway series, he always had this vision that Edward would be the main character because he's the first engine who's had a story told about him and Gordon. But no, it's Thomas somehow has built himself his own reputation, and whilst Edward is remembered fondly by fans, he seems to have been forgotten from what I've heard, which is a real shame because the idea of a wise old engine that is trying to help people along the way honestly is a much needed story, especially when it comes to writing successful children's storytelling. And I think there's been complaints about, and I guess when I first, looked at it, I just saw it as sort of over-analyzing. But then again, I used to study away doing animation for 3 years at uni, and one of the things they told you about is story writing and storytelling. And I think there was a whole day of lectures about like children's stories, and they were showing us clips from like CBeebies, or one of them came over to show how they made the show Hey Dougie. And whilst that one isn't so like story driven, it actually has like a dialogue. Like when you think about TV shows today like Bluey, that have like really good life lessons for not only kids but for parents. And when you think about like the old shows, like I used to grow up with things like Thomas the Tank Engine, Fire and Sam, what else? Postman Pat, Morph, Wallace and Gromit. You can really get the sense of how they were able to get the most out of like the characters, their interactions, and their stories. And I think that's been lost in All Engines Go. And I've not watched any of the episodes because again, I don't really watch Thomas today. I mostly need to go back to watch the old like model show if I just want a nostalgia kick. But in general, I've heard the complaints, I've seen the criticisms, and I kind of get it. So, because I get it from like a story writing and a storytelling point of view. So I do get all the complaints and the annoyances. So it's nice to see that they are winding back the clock here, and Dovetail Games just made sort of a love letter to the older generation of Thomas fans. And also the controls are very smooth. And I'll say this, when it comes to weather conditions, they're brilliant because there's wheel slip, there's like, not braking very well, that sort of thing. You've got to be really careful when buffering up. They really did think about everything, and Dovetail Games definitely have earned that pat on the back for how hard they worked. And I just sort of sometimes sit with this game and after a really bad day, I'll just load up the laptop, play this, and I'll just relax. Just chill, relax, take it easy, and this just gives me a buffer to just sit and chill. And I think, in a way, comfort games like this are kind of needed, especially in this crazy world that we're living in today. I won't go into it because I don't want my channel to be about that. I want it to be about trains. Plus, I just had too much fun, like, pulling the whistles. I find it interesting that it looks like they're going for, like, they got inspiration from the old models for, the engines, but they also sort of almost have the CGI face. And to be fair, some of the faces kind of look a bit off. Not all of them, some look good, like Thomas's tired face looks pretty good. But because it's much softer than... I'm going to say this. The CGI faces are made to be much softer than the models. Because they now... Whereas the models, you needed to depend on facial expressions to deliver the message. I guess when you think back to Wallace and Gromit, and how Gromit always lift his brow, or lower it, depending on his mood. With the CGI, they can talk, and there is some flexibility in the facial expressions there, I will say that. But they had to find ways to work around it when they were younger, like when you watch the old Fireman Sam, where their mouths wouldn't move, but there was enough voice acting to kind of get the gist. So that's kind of what I've learned from like my years of like doing stuff like this, and I want to write stories again. One of the reasons I started this channel actually was to give myself a creative release where I hit that artistic art block, but also because it dug me out of a hole. Discovering trains again has been the best thing for me, and it's really helped me to get myself back into a reality, and that's why I love doing these videos for you guys. And I'm really grateful to everyone who has commented on my videos, the friends I've made along the way, and all the experiences that I've had. Like, I never imagined in my wildest dreams I'd go on a ride behind the Flying Scotsman. I never imagined that I would be gearing myself up for a Steam Gala where Sir Nigel Gresley is going to be, the A4 class is going to be present, and I owe it to just discovering trains again, and I hope you all join me for the ride furthermore. And if you want to see more gaming-like videos, I'm definitely up for doing them, because I've seen so many on Steam, that I could do, like, not regularly, but I could do it once in a blue moon, just add some variety. I didn't want my channel to be sort of like a rip-off of LaserJet or anything, because he's got something amazing with his funny scenarios of, like, the Thomas races, or the engine races, can the Flying Scotsman stop a Hitachi? Yeah, I think I'd like to meet him one day. He sounds like a really nice dude. But also, I just wanted variety. I want to try something different. I just need an excuse to play games again. I've been slacking. Getting back to the game, I had no idea there were so many tunnels on the island of Sodor, but to be fair, there was so much that they've pulled from other sources. Like, I believe the Talaclin Railway that hosts the Audrey Extravaganza, the Talaclin Railway had actually helped them with the map of the island of Sodor, because they had some, I believe, some artifacts owned by Audrey, is it? Or I think they have a couple models from the original Thomas the Tank Engine series, like the Skarloey Railway. I'd love to visit Talaclin Railway. I'd love to visit Llangollen. I think we're going to try and go to Festiniog this year. I don't honestly know what the plan is with that, but I'm always eager to travel to new places and all that. You will see in some of the gameplay I get a little bit confused. Like, I don't quite understand what I'm doing, but I think the thing is, I have to have this problem in video games where I overthink the steps instead of just looking right in front of me. And that's a fault on my end, but yeah. At least you can pretend I'm getting out, make sure everything is okay, and then I get back in the train and I push forward. And again, I love how they recreate the stories. And whilst playing the game, the music from the show was playing in my head, and I think that was the desired result that they wanted. They wanted us to have the music playing in our head and all the scenarios because it adds that depth. Because the Thomas fandom is very creative, they're able to maybe even use this game to remake some stories or make their own stories. And I don't know how quite that will work, because I think you only control one locomotive at a time. I could be wrong on that, but I'm mostly playing this for the stories, and I'm going to do some exploring. And again, I love how you can go around the different stations and you can explore and find artifacts and find things that you can add to sort of a list, like Easter eggs and that sort of thing. I don't know how successful I'll be. I tend to rush around a lot, but I play Spyro the Dragon a lot, so I'm used to the collectathon. I mean, it's not like a collectathon thing, but it's a similar concept. Now, in the show, Thomas never he never pushed the coaches into Gordon's buffers. Gordon would buffer up after Thomas took them back, but I think they had to, like, they probably had more space to actually maybe make it more appropriate, more accurate to the Railway series books, or maybe they had to, like, find ways to work around it. And to be fair, what they did was quite clever. If you know how to work with limitations, you can make something magical. Like, I always comment on how I prefer the Sega Mega Drive music to the Super Nintendo, because limitations means you have to be more creative. And yes, it's an inferior sound chip on the Sega compared to Nintendo, but I just love it. But that's just me.
Gordon hadn't forgiven Thomas for waking him up from this nap. As soon as the last passenger had climbed on board, he started up so quickly that there was no time to uncouple Thomas.
A bit of a premature reaction there from Thomas, but hey-ho, the point is made. Now, I didn't understand why when I pressed 2, it didn't make Gordon, like, the first thing that we see, but that's probably down to accuracy of, like, the fact that we're meant to be seeing how Thomas kind of goes. But yeah, no, so now we're controlling Gordon, which, you know, makes sense. He is the front engine of the technically a top and tail consist, but yeah, it's cool to see.
Stop! Stop!
Come on, keep up, called Gordon.
And as I said, whilst I was driving Gordon down the way, I actually had the Gordon's theme playing in my head, the do 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 do, and I was just chuckling to myself because it made me realize that they've made an experience so immersive that you could actually fill in the blanks yourselves. And I'll tell you what, Gordon really goes at a pelt. Obviously, his design is inspired by the, I believe it's the it's the A1 class or the A3 class. I'm gonna look that up quickly. But yeah, he's the same. Let's see. A3. It's meant to be modeled after an A3. Yeah, I know it's one of those. Just, you know, a bit of realism in the commentary there, me. But yeah. Well, actually, it's funny. The Flying Scotsman, I think he started as an A1, but then was converted into an A3. I say he. What do you guys think? And I get very funny about... not funny, but I get very confused by this argument. So, when you see a locomotive, they're usually referred to as she or her. And I'm not trying to go about like this whole pronouns thing. It's like, we give names to these engines. Like, there's a modified Hanslet Austerity I know called King George, so it's easy to call that a he. But the Flying Scotsman, you still call the Flying Scotsman she, even though in Thomas the Tank Engine, the Flying Scotsman is portrayed as a he. So, do you do that, like, or do you, like, make your own, or is there actually a written rule about this, or am I just overthinking that? Obviously, an E2 is not meant to be going at those speeds anyway, which is why, you know, it's funny to the story, but, yeah, poor Thomas.
Poor Thomas was going faster than he had ever gone before. He was out of breath, and his wheels hurt him, but he had to go on.
You'll also notice that I don't really change a lot of the camera very much. That's because I try to actually play the game as if I'm trying to focus on actually stopping in the right place. And this is one of those examples where in a minute we're going to come up to, I believe it's Wellsworth Station. And I try to actually stop it properly like you would actually play an actual train simulator. Even though the show, it doesn't always follow rules of realism.
Express coming through.
Stop, please!
You may also notice in some of the audio there's like some weird volume thing going on with the audio, and I apologize for that as well. This, for some reason, has something to do with like the speakers on my laptop, and I don't know why that is. It's always been a problem. I don't know if it has something to do with the LEDs on my laptop, but I think next time if I do... I mean, I've already pre-recorded quite a few clips, so I'll have like 3 videos going up. But next time, I'm going to look into alternatives, because it's not going to work like this. Again, maybe I'll get the PS5 version. I've just been short on funds for a while. I spent my last bit of money actually buying an N-gauge model of a first Great Western Class 153 for my... So, priorities, you know? There's something oddly mesmerizing about watching the track run right behind you as the locomotive is still, although there's a bit of bobbing to, you know, because of the realism of running along the tracks, but sadly broken by some of the slowdown. But again, next time, if I do have a recording session, I'll probably do the PS5 version. Sorry, bit of a hiccup there. Now, this is what I'm talking about. I try to slow down and do this carefully. Even though Gordon was meant to be going fast, if you overrun your stopping point, you fail. And I unfortunately do that a few times in this game. Sometimes I'm so enthralled in the action, I forget what my objective is. I'm not afraid to say it. But yeah, this is me trying my hardest to try and stop in the rainbow grid and where that light is. And partial success.
At last, they stopped at a station. Well, little Thomas, chuckled Gordon, now you know what hard work means, don't you? Thomas was uncoupled, and he felt very silly and exhausted. Poor Thomas puffed slowly away to rest and had a long, long drink. After that, he was careful to never be cheeky to Gordon again.
Now, when I first finished Thomas and Gordon, I assumed it was going to move on to Edward and Gordon, but then I realized they haven't made all the models of the locomotives, and I don't know if they're planning to. I know they made James an add-on character, but I don't know if there are plans later on to expand on that. So they move straight on to Thomas Goes Fishing, which is one of the most popular stories, and usually a staple at Dealt with Thomas events, where like you would help the driver, fireman, and fat controller fill up Thomas's uh, water tank. He's a tank engine. I should know that the word is tank.
Thomas Goes Fishing. When Thomas puffed along his branch line, he always looked forward to something special. The sight of the river. As he rumbled over the bridge, he would see people fishing. Thomas often wanted to stay and watch. One day, Thomas stopped as usual to take on water at the station by the river. Out of order? Bother! I'm thirsty. Never mind, Thomas, said his driver. We'll get some water from the river. They found a bucket and some rope and went to the bridge.
Now this, I thought, was admittedly a really funny bit. So you got to drive up to the... so instead of in the original story where Thomas loses energy just as he gets to the bridge, we drive up to the bridge, which is pretty much close. And we have to actually get out and keep filling up the bucket. They didn't add the detail where there's like holes in the buckets. It's literally just fill up the water, which I think is a shame. I feel like that extra detail probably would have added some more hilarity to the whole scenario, but there's probably only so much they can do anyway. But yeah, see what you mean. Get out of the cab, drive the... And again, this is done really cleverly. It makes it way more immersive. Oh, actually, looking back at the video, they do add the holes by mistake. Only problem is they don't reference the fact that there are holes in it, so they look more like there's just little dots of dirt or something. So, like, it doesn't fall out of the holes or anything. Come to think of it, how many times did they have to do that? That's quite a drop, so they probably had to do that quite a few times. But I don't know if like river water is safe for a locomotive. It probably is. Happily. At least the Isle of Sodor waters look so much cleaner than our waters here in the UK. I'll say that much right now. But yeah, they did that a few times, and if I was a passenger, I'm just gonna say it, I'd be curious looking at what the hell they're doing, but I'd also be annoyed that my journey's been delayed. But then again, if I'm on the train already anyway, I don't really care. But yeah, if I got somewhere to be, not great, is it? After this, you do this, I think, 4 times, I believe. Yeah, 4 times, and then you just get back in Thomas, drive him along, just do your standard. Then it does get to the point where Thomas eventually does start to get tired. I don't know, like, because I've not played past the Diesel taking Annie and Clarabelle mission, or story, if you will, to know if they actually do more stuff like the driver, how to get out of the cab and do more. But when I saw this and I played it, I thought it was really neat. Anyway, I'm gonna stop talking for a bit, and why don't we just enjoy some of the gameplay? So I want to go back to what I said about the design of this island, or also the design of... yeah, I put the wrong door there. I forgot that it's U for right, Y for left. Again, everything just looks so real. Like, you can actually envision that the island of Sodor could actually look like this if it was actually one of the British Isles. I'd love to go somewhere like that. It honestly sounds like an incredible place to go, but sadly, we can't have the things we want all the time, so... Boo-hoo. We move along. So, a lot of it does look a bit bare, like around here, but then again, when you think about it, a lot of the countryside you see when you ride on the train is quite bare anyway, so it's just natural to the course. But you do look and you see like little features like the whistle signs, they got the speed signs, there's tractors around. They really did think of everything when trying to add realism to this island. Anyway, I'll go quiet again and we'll watch some more of the gameplay. And when we get to an interesting bit, I'll come back through. This is where I started to slip. I got a little bit overzealous then. Almost forgot I was meant to stop, so I timed that just about right.
Suddenly, Thomas began to feel a pain in his boiler. "Oh dear," groaned Thomas. "I think I'm going to burst. I've got such a pain. I've got such a pain."
And here's my first fail. I read junction is station, thought, oh, okay. And I was like, no, stop, stop, stop! And I went too far and I failed out, unfortunately. So that was my fault for that. But thankfully, I don't have to completely replay the scenario. I could just go back to the checkpoint, which makes life a hell of a lot easier for me. Bit embarrassing, but there's nothing I can do about that. That was on me for not paying attention. So I load it up again, I do it again, and this time I do it properly. This time, trying to take notice. I just realized Thomas's cap for the water tank is open. I don't know if that's a mistake or if that's done on purpose so that they can look at it in, but that's so weird. I did not notice that when playing this. I just noticed that now, you know, during editing. That's so strange. Anyway, I do stop this time properly. Maybe it does that after you restart the mission or start at a checkpoint or something. Either way, now we uncouple from Annie and Clarabelle, and now we have to go to the siding. But wait, shouldn't we finish the journey first?
They stopped just outside the last station, uncoupled Annie and Clarabelle, and ran Thomas, who was still groaning, onto a siding right out of the way. Then, while the guard telephoned for an engine inspector, the driver found a notice with large letters, which he hung on Thomas in front and behind. Danger, keep away. Soon, the inspector and Sir Topham Hatt arrived.
Cheer up, Thomas, they said. We'll soon put you right.
The driver told them what had happened. So the feed pipe is blocked, said the inspector. I'll just look in the tanks. He climbed up and peered in. Then he came down. Excuse me, sir. Please look in the tank and tell me what you see.
Certainly, Inspector,
replied Sir Topham Hatt. He clambered up, looked in, and nearly fell off in surprise. Inspector, he whispered, can you see fish?
Oh, that was weak. Here, let me show you how it's done.
Inspector, he whispered, can you see fish? Gracious goodness me, how did the fish get there, driver? We must have fished them from the river with our bucket, replied Thomas's driver. Well, Thomas, you and your driver have been fishing. But fish don't suit you. We must get them out. They all took turns fishing in Thomas's tank, while Sir Topham Hatt looked on and told them how to do it. Never mind, Thomas, said Sir Topham Hatt. You will be all right now. There's no need to worry yourself any more. But, he added, I do hope that you and your driver won't go fishing again, as I don't think it suits engines. Do you? No, sir, said Thomas sadly. Engines shouldn't go fishing. It's too uncomfortable.
I'm guessing they don't get fish and chips this time then. Anyway, the next scenario is Thomas and Bertie, but I think I'm going to leave it there. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll upload the next 2 parts over the next coming days. If you like what you see, then leave a comment. Let me know if you want to see more. As always, thanks for watching. Like, share, and subscribe. And hopefully, in the next coming weeks and months, as railway season kicks off again, I'll see you all down the line. Take care.